there, late night blitzing. Thanks for staying up with us. Tim Van Voren, Brandon Cruz, Lily Zhao, your purple and pink sports team coming at you. Kind of pastel tonight, but we're going to power through a good show. Here's what's coming up on the starting lineup. The Packers are Card Sharks, taking another win away at Lambeau Field. Doc Rivers makes us say what? What are the experts saying about Doc's Bucks? After their abrupt end of the season, what comes next for the Brewers? Plus, we cut through the water with our high school hotshot.
Always say that Jordan Love's an amazing quarterback. He's an amazing person. He bonds with everybody in this locker room, and I think that's big. You know, even after the mishap I had on the field, you know, he still threw me the ball, still had trust in me, believe in me. So that shows right there how the person he is.
The mishap that Bo Melton speaks of was him slipping and falling. A pass deflects off him and is intercepted. That's the only turnover from Jordan Love today. Brandon, you were there with me, and you listened to Love in the post-game press conferences. What did you think of his day in general?
It was really good. It was very solid. In fact, it was probably the best we've seen him this season as he finally feels comfortable with his knee, he said. We saw him run a few times, and he didn't look to be hobbled or held up at all with that. He was much more accurate in his passes. Even with that interception, that wasn't on him in reality with the slip by Bo Melton. And he was able to connect with a bunch of different guys. I mean, he spread the wealth in this one today, and I think that really made a big difference against this Cardinals defense. It really just couldn't stop them as they were in such a rhythm. 9
different receivers, I think. Here are the actual numbers on Jordan Love. Again, kind of the asterisk to the interception there, 4 touchdowns. You definitely look at that. That's 2 straight home games now, 4 touchdowns for Jordan Love. One of those receivers, though, Romeo Doubs. A couple of touchdowns. How big was this day for Doubs, and then obviously the production within the day?
I think, he's a quiet guy, and while he probably won't say it, I think it was a very big day for him, right? You talk about wanting to put this behind him, and that's exactly what he said, right? He said it was a tough week for him. A lot was going on, but getting back to the team and playing was the most important thing, and he wants to move forward with everybody, right? But I think what was the most encouraging, though, was to see Romeo Doubs out there, got targeted a few times, and, at one point he had 2 touchdowns and 3 passes. So it was a good day for him to get reacclimated, gets his first 2 touchdowns of the season. But you see right there, though, right? The team love that they have for Doubs was great to see. Christian Watson, Bo Melton, Jaden Reed and company, everybody going in for this group hug celebration. I think the guys really loved having him back, and it was just good to see him get back in action, right? With Dontavian Wicks going out with an injury, they needed him today. And he certainly stepped up big and was all business. Didn't really look too, flashy in the celebrations that he had, but certainly glad to have him back on the field.
There is an elephant in the room here. This we're talking about or alluding to was the conduct detrimental to the team's suspension from last week, Brandon. Is that a blip?
We'll find out. I think right now, with the way things went on Sunday and with the way they show that they welcomed him back, it could be. But I think it's a matter of what does he do in the future? Does he maintain what we saw this week with him back at practice, with him producing on the field in the game, and really being kind of quiet about whatever may have been the issue? That is what we won't know for another couple of weeks. So to me, that is one of the biggest issues is we will see how he turns out this week, in the future now, next week, the week after that. And if things kind of go quietly, I think at that point, then they move on. It was just a blip. If anything kind of comes up again in that time, then you have to see if there's a real problem.
And Doubs, as you said, Lily, and as you know from the years, not a big talker, but he spoke on Friday about the situation, spoke after the game today about the situation.
He just told me good game, and he was glad to have me back. Again, there was a lot of stuff going on throughout the course of last week, and last week prior to this one. Ultimately, this game's a team game, and again, I'm just ready to move forward.
Ready to move forward. I think all involved probably would say that about this contest. Josh Jacobs is moving forward at a regular basis. Lily, it seems like we have Josh Jacobs in the show every week, and he has this sort of game every week.
Yeah, and we'd like to see him score more touchdowns, right? But listen, he's a workhorse for this Packers offense when he needs to be, and he certainly was again today. Ran really hard on the ground and, also helped out in the passing game as well. Pass pro, everything going right for Josh Jacobs. But that's what you want from a guy, right? You want your #1 running back doing everything for the offense, and he's playing very unselfish football, and that's great to see from him, and able to get a lot of good chunk runs there, that play included. So Josh Jacobs really adding the balance to this Packers offense. We talked about Jordan Love finding 9 different receivers today, and Josh Jacobs helping out balance out the offense on the ground as well.
All right, let's flip it to the other side. Brandon, I know you did a story about the takeaways for the Fox 6 News. And I don't know how you can tell a story of this game without talking about that.
No, it's incredible what this team is able to do defensively. I mean, they go after the ball, and it's something we haven't seen from the Packers defense like this in quite a while. I mean, the fact that they have 17 turnovers created in just 6 games says a lot, because in 17 games, last season they had 18 total. And what it keeps doing is it stops any momentum from this other team, even if they don't turn it into points. They did it a couple of times a day. But if they don't turn it into points, they still stop that momentum that maybe the other team had created. And then the other part of it is they're just so aggressive, and it seems like it's anybody and everybody. But when you really look at it, guys are punching the ball, guys are grabbing the ball. I mean, it's always attack the ball, and we haven't seen the Packers do that consistently like we have this season.
And I don't know what the numbers are. It seems anecdotal, but they seem to be coming in bunches in the second halves of games, too. And not coincidentally, the Packers' defense has been really holding down the opposing teams in the second halves of games. So as Brandon said, not always directly translated to points, but definitely changes the flow of a game.
It certainly does. And you know, talk about last week, their win against the Rams. I think the Rams were driving, and then Matthew Stafford gets picked off by Xavier McKinney. So you talk about those momentum-killing plays for the Packers defense. They do it again 3 times in the second half, and that's exactly what you want to see, right? The Cardinals have been known to come back from double-digit deficits, right? They did it just the week prior to upset the Niners. The Packers were kind of in a similar situation. They gave up 10 quick points in the last 2 minutes of the first half, and the Cardinals come back out and score a field goal. So there's 13 unanswered points for Arizona, but what does this Packers defense do? They clamp down in the second half to get 3 takeaways, and it's pretty impressive. I think last year they were kind of coming in bunches for this team, but it was very sporadic. This year it's been consistent. They've had 5 games with 3 turnovers, so it's been very consistent. These guys have really good vision, and like Brandon said, they're really attacking the ball, and that's what Jeff Hafley brings to this defense.
And somehow the Cardinals beat the Niners, because that didn't look like the same team today that could do that again. What a celebration for the Melton family. Bo Melton for the Packers, of course, Max Melton for the Cardinals. Their parents were there. It was a feel-good type situation.
It was, no matter how this game was going to turn out, this was a special day for that family. The parents wearing jerseys of both their kids at the same time. In the front, you have Bo. In the back, it's Max. Bo obviously getting the bragging rights out of this one. But it was really cool because they were on the field together, competing against one another, yet their entire family there. After the game, they switched jerseys with one another, and they got to share it at Lambeau Field, which is clearly a special place for almost everybody in the NFL. And to do it in front of family and friends like that, it says a lot about how close this family is and what it means.
Bo's always been super proud of his younger brother, too.
Right.
So this was a neat moment all the way around. Braden Narveson we'll talk about another week, maybe.
Yes.
Missing another week. All right, the Badgers roll over Rutgers in a blowout. 42-7 the final score. Who saw that coming? Tawee Walker, 3 touchdowns, nearly 200 yards on the ground for him on Saturday. And a special weekend for former Badgers and Panthers basketball coach Bo Ryan, inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield after his storied career coaching here in the state. Coming up, a different coach makes us say what?
Do I vote? I don't even know if I vote for her.
You really want to ask that question out of the gate?
I just like getting people's attention with something.
My significant other think he's sexy, so.
Wow. That was interesting. Was that Taylor Swift?
One second. Dr. Snibby? I'll call you right back. I'm doing a press conference. Everybody, this is my hip doctor that's calling.
It's good of him to check on Doc there at those key moments. And how about Doc? Just saying, hey, I'm busy right now. We'll get back to you in a moment.
Yeah.
Compartmentalize.
Yeah, how about that? Speaking of Doc Rivers and his Bucks, they're 2 games into the preseason. Giannis finally plays. What do you think his impact has been maybe on this team this early on? I mean, a training camp, a couple of games now.
You're talking of Doc here?
Yes.
Yeah, so obviously different to have a training camp. Some of his ideas are being enacted, not just basketball-wise, but even kind of travel, who's with the team, where the team is going for the start of training camp. And he believes in togetherness. He believes, yes, these guys have played together, many of them, on this team for several years, but you can learn more about each other, and that is going to pay benefits on the court. So that seems to be what he's stressing as much as anything. Last year, I remember when he first came in, it was all about positive reinforcement, enthusiasm, get everybody's mood up. This year, it seems to be togetherness.
Do you feel like the guys are buying into this year?
I do, and just having listened to the guys during media day, you talk about just the excitement of going away together, right? They went away together to California to really bond, and having a full offseason with Doc after a couple months during last season. These are guys that believe in what Doc is preaching, and they're buying into the system, and that's exactly what you want to have, right? You want to have continuity going into a season. You want your veterans buying in, they certainly have, and you want these young guys doing the same, and it looks good so far, despite obviously preseason results, which don't matter.
Well, and this is Giannis's locker room as the player. I mean, he's the guy that seems to be the leader of this team. So when you're looking at this with Giannis and him, he was a guy that made sure he took guys out in Southern California, as did others. So is he setting the right tone at this point, do you feel?
Oh, I think so. I think Giannis is a lead by deed kind of guy, and he's a lead by playing, I mean, more than anything else. And I think he understands his leadership role on this team because of his profile. So I think with he and Damian Lillard this series, they're going to share the ball maybe a little bit better, and they're going to share the leadership of this team.
All right, let's shift gears to the Brewers now as their season is wrapped up. Their general manager and manager speaking this week about what this season meant, what they're doing looking forward. And Lily, looking forward, what do they do with the most likely result of Willy Adames being gone?
You have options, right? Joey Ortiz, and obviously they're going to test out another player at third base and Sal Frelick, and we'll see kind of how that all shakes out there with the shortstop position. But when you lose a guy like Willy Adames, potentially, right, when you lose him to free agency, he's a valuable guy also in the clubhouse. So you lose that leadership, you lose a veteran presence, and you lose that connection with a guy who was so special for this team in 3.5 seasons with the Milwaukee Brewers. But you look at just the money aspect of it, right? I think if Willy wants to take a pay cut and stay with the Milwaukee Brewers, I think fans would be glad to have him back, but that might not be the reality of the situation. But the good thing is, though, that the Brewers do have a lot of young talent that they can kind of infuse at that shortstop position. So it's, they're going to lose potentially Willy Adames and his special playability, and especially those 3-run homers and his clutch moments during the regular season. But if you lose him, they certainly have options to fill that role, which is a good spot to be in for this Brewers team.
And Matt Arnold and Pat Murphy both rave about who he is as a person as well as a player. Another person they've raved about, Tim, is Devin Williams. He's going into his final year. How important is it to try to keep him, or do we wait and see again, kind of like we did with seeing Josh Hader go or Willy Adames stay?
Corbin Burr,
right.
It's the Brewer playbook here is to trade these guys before they get into that last year. Willy Adames, as you said, has been the exception. He stayed, so I would just based on that think the Brewers would be interested or likely to move Devin Williams in this offseason. He should have tremendous value. Yes, it didn't end well at the end of this season, but he's always been a stand-up guy. He's been an all-star. He's been the best reliever in the National League by vote on occasion, and he's delivered again this season, and he appeared to be healthy as the season went along.
Yeah, and finally, Lily, with the Brewers, is this team built to win again next year?
You'd have to hope so, right? Again, you lose Christian Yelich during the middle of the season. You lose Brandon Woodruff to start the season, so they're going to have both those guys back. And you look at the infusion of young talent who now have had a whole season under Pat Murphy under their belt. So I think they are built for success, but of course it'll hurt if you lose a player like Willy Adames. But I think they're built for success. The question is, can they do it again in the postseason and actually win a series? That's the big question.
Well, and they won't be sneaking up on anybody maybe like they did this season. Well, Franklin Sam Mayer didn't sneak up on anybody, but he did have plenty of luck at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. In Saturday's NASCAR Xfinity Playoff Series race, Mayer earns a walk-off win, and that keeps the season alive. He moves on to the round of 8. That's huge for him. We'll be back coming up with our high school hot shot.
Welcome back. If you're ever downtown near the Milwaukee River in the late afternoon, you may hear bullhorns barking orders, and you may see half a dozen shells skimming through the water. From stem to stern, this is why one of their club rowers is our FOX6 High School hotshot.
Hi, my name is Amalia Holbrook. I'm a senior at Whitefish Bay High School, and I'm a rower at the Milwaukee River. Yeah, it is a high school varsity sport. Everyone is guaranteed to be in a boat. We kind of race each other to get into the highest boat you can get in. It's confusing that way because we're going backwards. I'm in the front of the boat, but everyone follows me, but I'm technically in the back. I'm usually always in the position I was today. It's called the stroke seat. All the girls are behind me, and so they follow my stroke. Each stroke needs to be the exact same so that everyone can follow them very easily. Yeah, so I set the pace, so there's no rowers in front of me.
When you go for a stroke, we'll add the feather here, too.
I've kind of been rowing on and off since freshman year of high school. I was also a volleyball player. My sophomore year of high school, I committed to my rowing. I mean, a typical rower is over 6 feet tall. They're big, like muscular people. I'm not like that, I guess. I still somehow find my speed. If you don't have technique and you're really strong, you're not going to be able to move the boat. It is full body, but most power comes from the legs. I am actually committed to go to UCLA to row. Yeah, it'll be another 4 years of rowing out in California, which will be intense. They row, it's a little harbor, I think it's called Marina del Rey. Yeah, they're actually on the ocean, so there'll be dolphins swimming next to them. I'm very proud of our team because we placed very well at Nationals last year. My boat and the other varsity boat both made it into the B final, which is saying a lot because there's so many teams, and that was the best a girl's boat has ever placed in like the history of this club. Especially nowadays when it's sun setting, I definitely take a look around. It's really nice to take in. My name is Amalia Holbrook. I'm a senior at Whitefish Bay High School, and I'm a rower at the Milwaukee Rowing Club. And I'm this week's FOX6 High School Hotshot.
And get this, next week, Amalia and her team will head to Boston for a race on the Charles River. It'll be one of the biggest races of the year, so we wish you good luck. Meanwhile, it's the final week of the regular season and week 9 of our FOX6 High School Blitz. And our game of the week will be a battle in New Berlin as New Berlin Eisenhower hosts New Berlin West with playoff implications on the line. So tune into the FOX6 High School Blitz on Friday night with Brandon Cruz after college football. It's going to be a great show, and we will be right back.
Coming up, the Packers taking on the Houston Texans. That's at Lambeau Field, noon next Sunday. Prior to that, man in purple, Brandon, Badgers are going to play a team in purple.
Yeah, and on the lake, right down there in Evanston, a new-looking stadium for Northwestern, a new-looking Badgers team the last 2 weeks. We'll see if they can make it 3 in a row.
And they're building a new stadium there. The Bucs will build into this season, Lily.
Yeah, they're going to finish out their preseason slate this week. They're going to host the Bulls tomorrow night, then travel out to Dallas on Thursday to finish out the preseason.
And let's not forget the Admirals. They play the Ice Hogs twice this week at Rockford on Friday night, then back here in Milwaukee for the home opener on Saturday evening. Braden Narveson missed a field goal today, made a field goal today. What's your, both of you now, would you keep him?
No. I think this is who he is right now. He is not ready to consistently make field goals. Every single week, he gets out there and he makes 2, 3, but he always seems to miss one. And this one wasn't critical, but it was another situation where they had the turnover and then they needed the points at the time, and he didn't deliver.
So, Lily, the question is now posed to you. Would you keep Braden Narveson?
I would not. And I know he's a great guy. I know he's, tried his hardest. But when you lead the NFL with 5 missed field goals, especially 6 weeks into the season, that's not a good stat to be leading in. And, he had a good week in practice. I know Matt LaFleur talked about that, but he looked very shaky in pregame warmups, and that certainly carried over into the game today where he did miss that field goal. Matt LaFleur asked about it after the game. He said he absolutely still had confidence in Braden Narveson, and I know he's going to say that, of course, but when you have a performance as inconsistent as this, one day it's going to cost the Packers a game. It certainly did 2 weeks ago. And so you need this kicker position to be consistent, and Narveson hasn't been that so far this year.
It's kind of the old Florida State deal. Wide right. I mean, the Packers have had this problem now with kicking. They've gotten so much right on their roster. This continues to be a sore thumb.
And you can't necessarily say it's coaching because it's different guys and different things and different ways that it's happening, but they do need to bring somebody in who they can trust to be able to get the job done consistently, because inconsistency is killing them.
And of course, Chad Ryland, who kicked today for the Cardinals, had just worked out for the Packers recently.
Right, and it's fascinating to me, though, guys, that the Packers have had an easier time finding a quarterback than a kicker. And so that kind of says a lot about the state of the roster in that regard.
Absolutely. And I mean, as you said, they didn't need those points today, but at some point you may need them. Anders Carlson continues to work out around the league. He has not gotten signed.
Yeah, I mean, do you bring him back?
I don't think you do that.
No,
but I mean, Greg Joseph got signed.
Right.
Yes.
So I don't.
He's kicked well.
It's a tricky deal, no question about it. Well, We don't have. We'll give you some answers. We don't know. Our answers don't matter, but we'll give you the answer just to. Thanks for staying up with us again on the Blitz. See you next week.